Okay, so before we start, we're not going to be talking about Visa credit cards. We're going to be talking about travel visas, which are a different kind of visa altogether. So what are travel visas? Well, a travel visa is a special permission given by a country to— wait, hang on, let's at least get the intro out of the way first. There we go, much better. So, a travel visa is basically a special permission given by a country for a foreign national to enter their country. They often have certain restrictions on the traveler, such as when they may enter, how long they may stay, whether or not they are permitted to work, and often even how much of the country they can explore, though this isn't as common of a regulation. However, there are numerous different types of visas for all different kinds of uses, countries, and nationalities. Let's take this guy here as an example. He is an East German citizen, which means he can't enter any countries anymore because the DDR stopped existing 29 years ago. Okay, let's take this guy, who is an American citizen. He, for some reason, has only just now gotten around to watching Kung Fu Panda.
Just pretend I'm a panda, it'll make the copyright dispute a hell of a lot easier.
And he is absolutely hooked, so he decides he'd like to go to China. He then discovers that, in order to visit the People's Republic of China, he needs to get a visa in advance. This involves filling out a form, going to the nearest embassy or consulate, paying some money, letting the staff look over his passport, and eventually getting a special sticker in the mail to put in his passport. Only then can he go begin his tour of China. Yeah, this guy looks a bit different when he travels. However, most countries around the world do allow nationals of some other countries to visit for a short time without any of that fuss. In fact, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan all have separate visa policies to both each other and to the mainland. So the guy from earlier visits the Wikipedia page, Visa Requirements for United States Citizens, and goes down to the territory section and finds out that all three of these places allow Americans in for a certain amount of time without a visa. Macau for 30 days, Hong Kong for 3 months, and Taiwan for 90 days. By the way, I should quickly reiterate that, while Hong Kong and Macau are not separate countries, and Taiwan isn't always recognized as a separate country, all three of these areas have a separate immigration and visa policy from mainland China. This is actually not unique to China. Guam has a separate visa policy from the mainland US, and Quiche Island has a separate visa policy from mainland Iran. So don't be put off by how I'm effectively treating Taiwan as a separate country for these intents and purposes. Please don't kill me. Many countries around the world will let citizens of certain other countries in with just a passport, but only for a limited time. An American can also visit Canada for up to 180 days, the Schengen area for up to 90 days in a 180-day period, Japan for up to 90 days, etc. However, some countries will only let foreigners in without a visa if they get a special kind of light visa, either online or at the border. For Americans, some countries, like Turkey or Australia, require you to get the visa online, which is actually very easy, especially through websites like ivisa.com, which I have an affiliate link for in the description below. Whereas others, like the United Arab Emirates, will grant the visa upon arrival. Some countries even give you both options. These visas, often known as electronic visas or e-visas, are not the same as regular visas, as they don't require any visits to the embassy or consulate, and generally aren't granted in the form of special stickers that they send to you to put in your passport. But they are also subject to the visa-free limit, as if you'd gotten in without a visa at all. Even with the right e-visa or on-arrival visa, Americans can only stay in Turkey or Australia for 90 days, and in the UAE for 30 days. That's because they're just for tourists, or business travelers, whatever floats your boat. But if you want to live somewhere long-term, that's where long-stay and immigrant visas come in. Long-stay visas are visas granted for those who don't plan to live in the country forever, but are still going to be there for longer than the time normally allowed for tourists. These are used for things like studying, as is the case with exchange students, temporary work, asylum, or residence permits. For those who do want to actually immigrate to the country, however, there are of course immigrant visas. These too come in different types, such as the spouse or partner visa allowing married couples of different nationalities to stay in one of their countries, or the marriage or fiancé visa for those couples who are about to get married, as well as plenty others that don't involve getting married, don't worry. Visas like these, while often still temporarily granted, offer a path to citizenship, as well as the right to live and work in the country in the meantime. Going slightly further down the system, the United States operates their Electronic System for Travel Authorization, or ESTA, and Canada their Electronic Travel Authority, or ETA, for citizens of certain countries who don't need a visa in advance to visit either country. ESTA and ETA are not visas, but are basically security pre-clearances for citizens, generally from Europe, East Asia, and Australasia, to enter either country without a visa. ESTA is required by every US visa waiver country, except for Canada, Marshall Islands, Micronesia, and Palau, which don't need a visa at all, and ETA is required by every Canadian visa-free country, except for the US and for French citizens living in Saint-Pierre-Miquelon due to their proximity to Canada. Of course, there are also various treaties between different countries that make everything easier for those looking to live and work in another country. Probably the most famous example is the European Union, where a citizen of any of its member nations can move to another country, no questions asked. However, some other examples include things like the Trans-Tasman Travel Arrangement between Australia and New Zealand.
The Trans-Tasman travel arrangement allows Australians and New Zealanders to live, work and study in the other country, but there are some restrictions. For example, Kiwis coming to Australia to study wouldn't be automatically eligible to get a student loan, and they wouldn't be able to work in the Australian public service.
Oh, okay, thanks Tibbies. Personally, I'd have called it the Trans-Tasman Travel Treaty just to keep the pattern going, but still. The United States also has something called the Compact of Free Association between itself and Palau, the Marshall Islands, and Micronesia, where citizens of any of those 4 countries can freely live and work in any of the others, though it's restricted to just 1 year in Palau. Numerous other countries, like India and Nepal or the states of the Gulf Cooperation Council, have also organized these such freedom of travel permits between their countries, often requiring citizens to only use their national ID cards when crossing the border. Though obviously this isn't the case with foreigners who may still need a visa. So at the end of the day, why do citizens of some countries need visas to visit a country, whereas citizens of others are basically treated as residents automatically? Well, visas are basically the host country granting permission for the applicant to enter the country, and visa-free requirements are really the exceptions to that rule, especially since visa-free foreigners are only allowed in for a limited time and with limited privileges. Getting a visa can be pretty inconvenient a lot of the time. However, the World Tourism Organization announced in 2015 that that year had the lowest level of tourists needing to get a visa before travel on record, so there is hope. Thank you as always for watching this video. If you liked it and want more out of this channel, aside from all my other videos, please be sure to subscribe, follow me on social media, and check out the Discord server. Also, do consider supporting the channel on Patreon so you can learn something new every Sunday.